Wind that whispers through the willow trees, sun that sustains us, water that rushes over willing earth and weathered stones, a smile shared and savored, a child's squeal of delight as she dances in the daisies and daffodils, the quiet joy of gathered community. This is the spirit of life and love that we call forth now into this gathering. May this spirit infuse our hearts, fill our souls, and carry us forward like a wave on the ocean as we enter now into this sacred time and space. And at this time, we'll have an opportunity to light our candles of community. You can light a candle for a joy or a concern, or simply to bring more light into our space.
May nothing evil cross this door, and may your fortune never pry about these windows. May the roar and rain go by. By faith made strong, the rafters will withstand the battering of the storm. This hearth of the world grow chill will keep you warm. Peace shall walk softly through these rooms, touching our lips with holy wine, till every casual corner blooms into a shrine. With laughter drown the raucous shout, and though these sheltering walls are thin, may they be strong to keep hate out in whole love in.
Let us stand in body or spirit for the lighting of the chalice and our spoken affirmation. Glory be to the earth and the wind. Glory be to the sun and the rain. Glory be to animals and children. Glory be to our holy flame, which calls us together as one. Let us join together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another. Be seated. Our opening thought comes from Wangari Maathai, from the book, The Greenbelt Movement. I'm very conscious of the fact that you can't do it alone. It's teamwork. When you do it alone, you run the risk that when you are no longer there, nobody else will do it.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life.
Our next reading comes from Wangari Maathai again, from her book Unbowed, a memoir. She writes, "I was inspired by a traditional African tool that has 3 legs and a basin to sit on. To me, the 3 legs represent 3 critical pillars of just and stable societies. The first leg stands for democratic space, where rights are respected, whether they are human rights, women's rights, children's rights, or environmental rights. The second represents sustainable and equitable management of resources. And the third stands for cultures of peace that are deliberately cultivated within communities and nations. The basin, or seat, represents society and its prospects for development. Unless all 3 legs are in place, supporting the seat, no society can thrive. Neither can its citizens develop their skills and creativity. When one leg is missing, the seat is unstable. When 2 legs are missing, it is impossible to keep any state alive. And when no legs are available, the state is as good as a failed state. No development can take place in such a state either. Instead, conflict ensues." Now let us prepare for our meditation, the strong tree meditation. Begin by closing your eyes and take 3 long, deep breaths. Feel yourself sink deeply into the ground and your body becomes relaxed. Now imagine that you are standing on a path at the edge of a small forest. The bright sun warms your back as you face the opening in the trees. The cool breeze from the forest is inviting you to enter. The path is clear and broad. It is easy to follow. And so you step into the forest. All around you, you can hear birds calling to one another. Their sounds are gentle and sweet. It is as if they are encouraging you to take a few more steps into their home. And so you do. The peace in the forest is total. You are aware of small animals around you. You see rabbits and squirrels romping and playing. You can hear the sounds of more birds hidden in the dense canopy of the forest. As you continue to walk forward, there before you is a beautiful, massive, strong tree. It has a strong root system coming out of the earth, anchoring it in place. You decide to climb into the roots. And it's as if the roots create a special natural bench for you to sit. You notice that the roots connect to a small creek of cool, running water near where you are sitting. So you dangle your feet into the water below, sending a cool, pleasant tingle up from your feet to your ankles, then up your legs to your tummy. Now you feel the coolness touching your fingers, and then up your arms into your chest, neck. Then your forehead feels cool and calm. Breathe in this cool, refreshing feeling. Your entire body feels refreshed and relaxed as you dangle your feet in the river, sitting on the strong roots of the tree. Your mind begins to focus on the strength of the tree, its power and stability. You think about how it is deeply rooted into the ground and how it is connected to the earth. Your thoughts drift to how the tree gives its shade, its oxygen to the air we breathe, how it provides a home to birds and other animals, and how it gives you a sense of being strong, stable, and protected. You take one last deep breath in the forest. And know it is time to leave. You begin to start walking down the forest path, feeling the sun warm your body again. You turn around to bid your tree goodbye. You know that you can return to the strong stability of the tree and its refreshing waters below whenever you need to. Take a deep breath in and return to the room when you are ready.
See the world in the green
Our second reading comes from the Nobel Peace Laureate speech by Wangari Maathai. And after this reading, we will go directly into this morning's discourse, and the video of "I Will Be a Hummingbird" will follow the discourse this morning. In her Nobel laureate speech, Wangari Maathai said, "As we progressively understood the causes of environmental degradation, we saw the need for good governance. Indeed, the state of any country's environment is a reflection of the kind of governance in place. And without good governance, there can be no peace. Many countries which have poor governance systems are also likely to have conflicts and poor laws protecting the environment." Wangari Maathai was born in Kenya in 1940, when Kenya was still an occupied colony ruled by Great Britain. And she died in 2011 as one of the most internationally celebrated and influential persons in the world. She was a child of Kikuyu parents whose father worked on a farm of a white settler to support her family, and her mother and her father and even one of her brothers worked hard to help pay for her early education at a Catholic boarding school where she started school at the age of 11. And she, as a young student, excelled academically, and she also converted to Catholicism during that time at the boarding school. And she took on the name Mary Josephine. And in time, she came to be simply known as Mary Jo. She was, for the most part, sheltered from the violence of the Mau Mau rebellion that took place in the 1950s against British rule in Kenya. She was sheltered from this owing to her being a resident in the boarding school. Her success at the boarding school enabled her to attend the only Catholic high school for girls in all of Kenya. And there she became interested in the study of biology, and she once again excelled academically, so much so that she was selected as one of only 300 students in all of Kenya to be a part of what was known as the first Kennedy airlift in 1960 that brought Kenyans to the United States to pursue higher education. This was the same program that inspired the father of our former president, Barack Obama, also named Barack Obama, to come to the United States to study in Hawaii. Wangari studied in Kansas, just north of Oklahoma, and she studied at Mount St. Scholastica College, which is now simply known as Benedictine College. Then it was a college for women. Now Benedictine College is a co-ed college. And she majored in biology with minors in chemistry and German. And she graduated in 1964. She stayed in the United States a couple of years longer to pursue her master's degree in biological sciences, and she did that master's degree at the University of Pittsburgh, where she graduated in 1966. She credited her time in the United States as not only a time that prepared her for her future PhD studies in Germany and in Kenya, but also for helping her be more open to varying religious views and also giving her insight into the civil rights struggles occurring in the United States that intersected in some ways with the struggle for independence in Kenya. During her time in Pittsburgh, she was impressed by the efforts that were already beginning for environmental restoration that would transform Pittsburgh from one of the most polluted cities in the world to become a sustainability success story and also an environmental model for other industrial cities. This was an experience that influenced her own efforts for environmental restoration and regeneration in Kenya that would in the future bring her so much global recognition and support. When Wangari Maathai returned to Kenya, she returned with her original name, deciding to no longer use the name Mary Josephine that she had adopted when she converted to Catholicism as a youth. She returned to Kenya in 1966, not as Mary Jo, but as Wangari Maathai, the name she was given at birth. Reclaiming her name was one of her first acts of resistance to the vestiges of British colonialism that remained in the newly independent Kenya. Upon returning to Kenya, Wangari Maathai became a research assistant in microanatomy, and she continued her studies at what would soon become the University of Nairobi in Nairobi, Kenya. She spent a couple of years studying and researching in Germany as part of her doctoral studies before returning to Kenya in 1969, and it was in that year that she married, and she had 3 children with her husband before she and her husband divorced in 1979. After her divorce, she added an A to her married name for it to be spelled Maathai, and she went by the name Wangari Maathai for the rest of her life. In 1971, she became the first woman in all of Eastern Africa to receive a PhD. And her PhD was in veterinary science anatomy. And she later became the first woman to chair a university department in Kenya. It was during the 1970s that Wangari Maathai became engaged in activism in Kenya. She worked first for equal rights and equal benefits for women who were working at the University of Nairobi. And she made some persons upset with these efforts for equal benefits. She also, during the 1970s, began work studying the effects of parasites on the health of cattle in the country of Kenya. And this led her to the conclusion through her research that it was actually environmental degradation and not parasites that were the main contributor of decreased health of cattle in Kenya. The forested mountains and pristine streams and rivers of Wangari's childhood had been ravaged by deforestation to a point that it led to erosion and pollution of those streams and those rivers. And the streams that were once teeming with life, that she describes in her memoirs as teeming with fish, and she would play with the frogs and the tadpoles in the water, those streams that were once teeming with life were now nearly lifeless and full of silt. Confronted with the ecological devastation of deforestation, and also having the support of international non-governmental organizations, including the United Nations, Wangari Maathai founded a movement in 1977 to address these ecological concerns. And the name of that movement is the greenbelt movement. And it was during this time that she saw clearly the connections between care for the environment and the health and economic well-being of human communities. She worked with local communities all over Kenya, and the Greenbelt movement to this day has planted over 51 million trees since its founding in 1977, and it has become a global model for community reforestation. Maathai's work for women's rights and for ecological restoration quickly put her at odds with the extremely patriarchal and corrupt one-party government in Kenya of the time. She also experienced sexism and injustice in her divorce proceedings in 1979, in which she was accused of not being an obedient wife. And she was even imprisoned for insinuating that the judge was either incompetent or corrupt. It was not the last time that she would be mistreated by a corrupt legal system overseen by Kenya's dictator of the time, President Moi. Maathai directly resisted the corruption and ecologically damaging practices of the Moi government in Kenya. She led the effort to protect a 34-acre public park in Nairobi, really kind of the central park of Nairobi, from being secretly destroyed and developed by private interests that were also interests that were enriching governmental officials. She organized mothers of political prisoners at the corner of this same park that she was so instrumental in saving, a location that thereafter was known as Freedom Corner, even to this day. She also led efforts to save the Karura forests in Nairobi, which is the second largest urban forest in the world. Her efforts for justice led to her experiencing brutal beatings and imprisonment on more than one occasion, but she remained unbowed to the efforts to silence her. In the 1990s and in the 2000s, Maathai was instrumental in the movement for the rights of political dissenters. And she also helped bring about multi-party democracy in Kenya. She even had aspirations to become the president of Kenya. And though her aspirations never came to fruition, she was elected as a member of parliament in 2003, and she served as an assistant minister for the environment from 2003 to 2005. The fact that she was seen as a threat to the patriarchal economic and political systems in Kenya following the end of British rule, in which women were relegated to a subordinate role in family, society, and politics, made it extremely difficult for Wangari Maathai to play a more prominent role as an elected official. Though she was underappreciated by the power structures in Kenya, she did receive international recognition for her work for the environment, democracy, economic justice, women's rights, and peace. And we may all know that in 2004, she became the first African woman to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. In 2006, she received the Gandhi Peace Prize given by the government of India. She was also recognized by many publications as being one of the most influential persons in the world. And I think she's perhaps the most influential person in the history of the world for demonstrating the deep connections between the well-being of the environment and peace. She saw clearly that the health of the environment is one of the most important contributing factors for the presence of peace and justice. She experienced firsthand the intersections of racism, sexism, economic injustice, and environmental destruction. And she spent her life relentlessly planting the seeds, both literally and figuratively, the seeds of justice and peace. On a personal note, I had the privilege of nominating Wangari Maathai to speak at Oklahoma City University in 2008 as part of our Distinguished Speaker Series. It's not the Nobel Peace Prize, but it is one of the ways that our university recognizes persons who have made great contributions to the betterment of the world. And so, since I was the person who nominated her, and when the Distinguished Speaker Series Committee decided that she would come to the university, I received the great privilege of being her host at the university for the 2 days that she was there. And as she was coming to the university, we learned that she had missed a flight because of a connection. And we were very concerned that she was not going to be able to make it that evening for this huge event that we had planned with over 1,500 people that would end up coming to the lecture. But we found out that it was possible for her to fly into Tulsa instead of Oklahoma City, and that we would have time to drive to Tulsa to pick her up and get her back to Oklahoma City University for the lecture. Really, this was a wonderful thing that happened for me because it meant that I got to drive up to Tulsa, Oklahoma, pick up Wangari Maathai and her daughter from the airport, and had nearly 2 hours of uninterrupted conversation with Wangari Maathai and her daughter. It was one of the better experiences of my time at Oklahoma City University. And so we came back to the university. There were 1,500 people there. She spoke to them. And then after the time of speaking to the university community as a whole, she talked with me afterwards and said, I'm going to be here tomorrow morning. If you have a student group that you'd like to get together and I can talk with them, please get them together. So I definitely took that opportunity, quickly called some of the students on campus that I knew had interest and emailed them. And we got a group of about 50 students together the next morning and had this incredible conversation with Wangari Maathai before she left Oklahoma City. Unfortunately, just a few years later, Wangari Maathai would die of cancer in 2011 at the young age for her of 71. Her mother had lived to be 94 years of age. But during that time of 71 years, she contributed so much to the world and made this very important connection between the environment and economic justice and peace. Much more could be said about the life and the accomplishments of this remarkable person, Wangari Maathai. But I'm going to close with a story that was one of Wangari Maathai's favorite stories to tell. And she told this story to our students at Oklahoma City University. And I think this story is also a fitting tribute to her life and to her legacy. The story is, I Will Be a Hummingbird.
We are constantly being bombarded by problems that we face, and sometimes we can get completely overwhelmed. The story of the hummingbird is about this huge forest being consumed by a fire. All the animals in the forest come out and they are transfixed as they watch the forest burning, and they feel very overwhelmed, very powerless, except this little hummingbird. It says, I'm going to do something about the fire. So it flies to the nearest stream, takes a drop of water, and puts it on the fire, and goes up and down, up and down, up and down, as fast as it can. In the meantime, all the other animals, much bigger animals, like the elephant with a big trunk, could bring much more water. They are standing there helpless, and they are saying to the hummingbird, what do you think you can do? You're too little. This fire is too big. Your wings are too little. And you're big, so small. You can only bring a small drop of water at a time. But as they continue to discourage it, it turns to them without wasting any time and tells them, I am doing the best I can. And that, to me, is what all of us should do. We should always feel like a hummingbird. I may feel insignificant, but I certainly don't want to be like the animals watching as the planet goes down the drain. I will be a hummingbird. I will do the best I can.
So may all of us, like Wangari Maathai, do the best that we can, and may she continue to rest in power. And at this time, those who wish may bring their gifts to the table, and there's also opportunities to give online.
I spent a long time running, I never knew then what I know now. That the fruits, they always come in, but you can't go around just knocking them down. It takes a long time to show in. We plant the seeds then, and we look at them now. But the roots are always growing, no matter if I'm there or never around.
Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds, nothing
It's like
more.
your whole life you've been training for this moment, and when the time comes you just disown it, meaning you just surrender, don't control it, not interested in the clay pots and mold it, or sitting next to the path trying to unfold it, or waiting for the fruits to fall down toward you. Let it go and now you're flowing, feeling quite gorgeous, so you take steps away instead of towards it. What a rush, feeling freedom with nothing to hold. We've been taught that what you touch will always turn to gold, and now we're learning when we let it go it overflows with no credit to take, cause no credit is home. A higher power working deeper where the seeds are sowed, and when the seeds are true then they're seeds of gold. But the real gold is joy when life starts to flow, and when it does you just smile cause now you know. I spent a long time running, I never knew then what I know now. That the fruits, they always come in, but you can't go around just knocking them down. It takes a long time to show in. We plant the seeds then and we look at them now. But the roots are always growing, no matter if I'm there or never around.
Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds. Whatever grows will grow.
When it grows, it grows.
Whatever dies will
And when it dies, it dies. Come on.
Works will
If it works, it works.
Whatever flies will
Let it fly, let it
whatever
fly.
fails will fail.
When it fails, it
What's meant
fails.
to soar will
And
soar.
when it soars, it soars.
I am planting seeds. Whatever grows will
Let it grow, let it
whatever
grow.
dies will
If it dies, it dies.
whatever works will
And when it works, it
whatever
works.
flies
Yeah,
will
let it fly, let it
whatever
fly.
fails will
If it fails, it
What's meant
fails.
to soar will soar.
Let it soar.
I am planting seeds
and nothing more. sow, let it sow.
I am planting
seeds and nothing more.
You know, when you smile, it just helps someone to know that they're cared about and that you love them.
Let us stand together in body or spirit for our parting thought and the extinguishing of the chalice. Our parting thought comes to us from Wangari Maathai. She says, "When we plant trees, we plant the seeds of peace and the seeds of hope. We also secure the future for our children." We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.